It is a busy night in South Florida. They're getting absolutely hammered with heavy rain on the order of 5 to 10 inches, at least from this round, and they're going to get more over the next couple of days. Meanwhile, a little upper trough brought some clouds to parts of the Northeast today, but that's now going by. And we're making our way to Friday, where we've got severe weather risks for the Northeast and Northern Mid Atlantic states. SPC says so. It's because we watched our show last night. And a nice Father's Day weekend is coming on. And next week, you will attempt to beat the heat. All that and more tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. The revolutionary Tempest weather system is there for the taking, and you can join the fastest growing observing network on the weather network on the planet if you get the Tempest Weather Station. The link is on the description to this podcast. Give it a look over. If you can run it on your mobile device, and it keeps a history of your daily weather observations and rainfall. If you do decide to purchase this or anything else from the Tempest website, we strongly urge you to use the coupon code SPRING2024, which is exclusive to the watchers of the Joe and Joe Weather Show. If you do, you will get
10% off, Joe.
Yes. So I was looking at uh, the Miami office, and of course they've got all sorts of special weather statements and flash flood warnings that are up, and I just wanted to bring this particular graphic up that they have extreme flash flooding ongoing across South Florida. And they note the area that includes Naples and Everglades City on the west coast, and Fort Lauderdale and Miami on the east coast is either in the area of significant flooding in red, or in the case of Fort Lauderdale and Miami, we're talking extreme uh, risk for extreme flash flooding. So, of course, the usual flash flood emergency has been issued for northern Miami-Dade and southeastern Broward counties. Don't drive, and of course, everybody's going to listen to that, right? And the
You would hope.
greatest, you would think, you would hope, but they
Yeah.
won't. And the greatest threat is across urban Broward and Miami-Dade counties. Significant threat elsewhere along and just south of the I-75 corridor. And that's through this evening. And of course, our Mr. Rayo is getting the radars from South Florida. So while you're doing that, I just want to give a big hello to everybody on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast chat board. It's nice to see everybody here tonight, and welcome to those of you who are lurking in the background. We love you too. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. We may be adding Friday because of the severe weather risk in the Northeast and down into the Mid-Atlantic states. We will be off this coming Sunday, Father's Day. So just note those. Friday's a possibility. We'll let you know for sure tomorrow. Sunday's a definite. We're going to be off for Father's Day. And to turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And if you like the show, hit the like button, uh, which is a good thing to do. So Joe's got the radar there, and it's pretty loaded, Mr. Rayo. I note that there is a flash flood warning up again for Miami-Dade and Broward counties tonight. And I was looking at the rainfall amounts as of 3 a.m. Okay, so this is going back from the overnight. They got 3 to 7 inches of rain yesterday. I can imagine that they must have gotten at least that much today.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, you take a look right now on the radar, and the cells of heavy precipitation are moving almost due west to east, and you can see the areas of bright orange and even red. That has to be moderate to heavy rainfall, probably on the order of, since this is down in the tropics now, 1 to 2 inches per hour, maybe at times. And if they've already, as of 3 a.m. this morning, Joe, picked up 3 to 7, I wouldn't be at all surprised if we had virtually the same amount up to this point in time, and more to come, unfortunately. Again, most of the activity is occurring south of Lake Okeechobee. This is Lake Okeechobee right here. So if you are in Florida, yeah, you'll probably have spot showers popping up virtually all over the state. But the main batch, the heavy artillery, so to speak, of really heavy duty rain or torrential rain is occurring again to the south of Lake Okeechobee, which includes or envelops Fort Lauderdale, Miami Beach, um, all the way down to the Florida Keys in some cases. So it's no question about it. It's wet down there.
Can you now switch over just to sort of change geography here? Let's go up to Minnesota and take a look at the radars up there because we've got numerous severe thunderstorm warnings up in Minnesota. There's one that stands out to me, though. That's actually this is a tornado warning from earlier that expires 4 minutes from now. So right now it is what, 7:40. So this will be done at 7:45 p.m. Eastern time. So at 6:09 p.m. Central Time, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located near Dumbbell Lake. Now there's a name for a place. Or 33 miles southeast of Eli, moving southeast at 40 miles per hour. There's another tornado warning. By the way, that's for Cook and Lake counties in Minnesota. Um, Another tornado warning: a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located over Breezy Point, or 18 miles north of Brainerd, moving southeast at 55 miles per hour. And this covers the counties of Atkin, Cass, Crow, and Wing. I don't know if that's two separate. That Crow Wing County. I guess it's one word there. Atkin, Cass, and Crow Wing County in Minnesota. And I've got one, two, three, four, five, six severe thunderstorm warnings in play there. So have at it.
Well, this is the Minneapolis radar. Minneapolis is right smack in the middle of the scan. Not much is occurring during the first few scans, but as you see, as we get toward the end, these very vivid red echoes coming into play from the north and northwest. And that's probably what is producing the severe weather that Joe just mentioned and the potential for possible tornadic activity. Now, let me see if I can go a little bit more. That was Minneapolis. Let me see if I could pick up on something. If I go up here into Grand Forks, North Dakota, you can see, again, you can see these heavy duty storms which just blossom literally out of nowhere in the adjacent state of Minnesota. They're coming up right about here. And again, they're moving on that east-southeasterly course. There is nothing, I don't think there is anything between that radar site and Minneapolis, I should say. I could try Duluth, and you could see that there are some.
Yeah, there they go. Here they come.
There they go. That gives a much better picture. And you can see on the final few frames, I mean, the last frame of the loop shows that these are about as active or as robust as they have been. And look at these. These are heavy duty cells. And yes, damaging wind, dangerous lightning, and yes, even a possible tornado with any one of these bright red cells of precipitation. Again, moving now mostly across northern and north central sections of Minnesota.
Don't forget, folks, if you're watching this on a replay later tonight, or even during the first part of Thursday, obviously everything here is dated. So be sure you go to weather.gov to get the latest information regarding any severe weather that's going on. And also, if you're in South Florida, you might want to also do the same, considering all the rain. And there's going to be some more rain on Thursday. And did you go back to the Miami shot? Is this
This is
Miami?
no, this is Melbourne, Melbourne, and as pointing out, we were looking at the Miami shot before, and I said, the lion's share is mostly south of Lake Okeechobee. Now here's Lake Okeechobee here, and you can see all of the action, all of the moderate to heavy rains that are falling again below Lake Okeechobee or to the south of Lake Okeechobee. Now the rest of the state, because it is after all mid-June, and it is after all a humid month down there, as it always is in the summertime, you'll get other pop-up showers here and there, but nothing as organized as what is occurring again down south toward Miami. For example, again, this is Melbourne, Florida. If I go further to the north, let's say up to Jacksonville, again, you see some spot areas of local activity, locally heavy downpours, but most of northern Florida is out in the clear. Just if you happen to be unfortunate enough to be underneath one of these heavy cells of precip, you'll get rain, and you'll probably get rain rather hard on for the 5 or 10 or 15 minutes that the storm happens to be in your area. But again, much of central and northern Florida pretty much dry and out in the clear, save for these renegade showers that are popping up. But again, the main batch of heavy duty precipitation is occurring down over the southern end of the state. Here's Key West, and you can see all of this activity here, Boca Chica Key. You can see almost like a line, if you will, of moderate to heavy rain, which extends up from the Gulf of Mexico, actually almost up from Cuba, up to Florida, and on across the south end of Florida as well.
Yeah, it's been pretty, I mean, really pretty unrelenting. And the northern extent is a little further south than what was modeled. So at least so far in the areas to the north, up to about I-4, that Interstate 4, which cuts across from Tampa to Daytona, in that zone, that's where we had areas of severe drought and also severe drought further south. So at least the southern part of Florida is getting the southern part that's getting the heavy rain taking care of the severe drought there, but so far it hasn't really alleviated the drought conditions in those areas just north of there. 'Cause it just hasn't been enough rain. Enough rain. In some cases, hasn't been any rain at all.
Well, what we see on Thursday, that's when the Climate Prediction Center will post the latest, drought map. And what we see on Thursday is based on observations that were taken on Tuesday. So I'm thinking that tomorrow, Joe, when we take a look at the map for South Florida, you may see some alleviation of the drought situation, but you still will see a lot of places recording dry conditions or droughty conditions over South Florida. You probably look at that and say, "Oh, wait a minute, we've had so much rain over the last couple of days." But again, those observations that were filtered in to make that map was taken mostly yesterday, probably before the really heavy rains occurred that dumped 3 to 7 inches. So we'll probably have to wait until next week, next Thursday, to see a really significant change in the drought situation in South Florida. So it may be a little, it's going to be a little not disconcerting, but deceptive, if you will. Tomorrow, when the new map comes out, again, it may not show all that much of a change in the drought and dry situation in South Florida. But again, remember, those observations were put together on Tuesday to make that map. And again, next week, next Thursday, I'm sure it'll be a much, much different picture as compared to what we may see tomorrow.
And this was also an instance where we don't have a tropical storm here. I mean, this is basically a non-tropical event with a deep trough way up in the atmosphere, just drawing up all this moisture from the Northwest Caribbean and the Southeast Gulf, and then just aiming it straight northeastward into southern Florida. And eventually, a wave is going to develop on it when it goes out, offshore. But you don't. We were saying going into this that whether whether you wound up getting if you wound up getting a tropical storm or a tropical depression out of it, it wasn't going to really change what was going on.
Correct. And, a lot of people on social media were proclaiming that by this time we probably would have Alberto out there based upon, and you remember back like 8, 10, 12 days ago, the
Right.
GFS was really hyping up a tropical system somewhere, excuse me, somewhere in the eastern Gulf of Mexico or northern Florida or just off the Florida coast. And so far, a lot of moisture, but no tropical system, at least not just yet.
Right. All right. Let's check out what's going on nationwide with the watches and warnings, and we've got severe thunderstorm watches up for much of the northern half of Minnesota to northwestern Wisconsin. And of course, Joe showed you the radar, so it's playing out there. And there are still some working warnings and even a couple of working tornado warnings A peppering of heat advisories are starting to go up in central and northeast Kansas and northwest Missouri, also in southern New Mexico and southwest Texas. Excessive heat warnings for much of the southern half of Arizona, northwestward up into southern Nevada, including Las Vegas, and a diminishing pocket of extreme heat being indicated in Northern California in the interior, and also a pocket a little further south of heat advisories in northwestern Utah. We're likely to see a lot more of these come next week. Other than the flood warnings and the flood watches that are up for uh, western Florida from Tampa south and the east coast of Florida, uh, they sort of cut off when you go a little bit north of, say, Palm Beach on the East Coast, but those are still up. And of course, that's all been playing through. Nothing to worry about for the rest of the East Coast, clearly. And as we look at the satellite, you had a little upper trough there with some clouds today. It was just a little wrinkle, didn't produce any precip, but it did bring some clouds midday into the afternoon across upstate New York, and now it's sort of diminishing as it moves into New England. You can see the moisture that extends from the southeast Gulf northeastward out into the Atlantic, well past Bermuda. And you see the lightning strikes going on in South Florida. So some of those rains have got to be torrential in nature at this point. Some patchy clouds in the southeast. The weather system moving through Minnesota. You can see the firing up of clouds and thunderstorms and lightning strikes up there, and just a little bit of scattered cloudiness in parts of Colorado and into southern Wyoming and Utah. And there's a couple of showers going on there, and maybe even a rumble or two of thunder in some places. There's your Florida. Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
I should say I should correct myself. A few minutes ago, I said just a lot of heavy rain and no tropical activity, but a lot of these heavy rains are associated, I guess, with a tropical system, if you want to call it that. Invest number 90L, which maybe if everything were to break just right, crossing through Florida and out into the Atlantic, might become our first named tropical system, but again, so many things would have to come into play for that to happen. So, in a way, it is a tropical system, not a named system, but again, bringing a lot of that heavy duty rain across portions of Florida.
Well, Miami chose to recognize this on their outlook. An elongated area of low pressure over the Florida Peninsula is producing large and disorganized showers and thunderstorms, despite strong upper level winds. Some gradual development is possible while the system moves northeast offshore of the southeastern U.S. coast during the next couple of days. So, they're saying that if this is going to do anything, it's going to be after the, whatever act low center that forms is well out to the northeast in the Atlantic. Regardless of development, heavy rainfall is forecast to continue over portions of the Florida Peninsula for the next few days. 20% chance of tropical cyclone formation. I guess while I have it up, we should check the Eastern Pacific, and there's nothing there. Everything is very quiet on that side. So there's the wide radar view, and you can see the storms, the warnings in the yellow boxes through Minnesota, and central and northeastern Minnesota. Now getting ready to move into northwestern. I'm getting the east and the west mixed up tonight. Northwestern Wisconsin. There's also some showers in southern Wisconsin, skimming northern Illinois, and those look like they might be heading for Milwaukee, and maybe the southern end might clip Chicago in a couple of hours. The Storm Prediction Center in the storms up in Minnesota and Wisconsin, they have a slight risk and an area of enhanced risk in northeastern Minnesota. Obviously, this is all playing out according to plan. Marginal risk in South Florida, and a 2 to 5% tornado risk. That was indicated from northern Iowa up to northeastern Minnesota and northwest Wisconsin. So this too is playing out according to plan. Now, tomorrow, we now have an enhanced risk northern Missouri, southern Iowa, and western Illinois in a northeast southwest oriented stretch that goes from Michigan southwestward into Kansas and eastern Colorado and a small portion of northwest Texas. And that comes with an area of 2% tornado risk from northeast Kansas to northwest Indiana and the northern half of Illinois. Now, moving on to day three, and just a reminder that the SPC puts out the day three forecast only once a day, and that was back at um,
7 a.m.
this. You know, they do it in the overnight. They updated this today, though, which is unusual. At let's see, updated Wednesday, June 12th at 7:29. Oh, you know what, Joe? Y- you know, SPC, they're so courteous by updating the map right before the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast comes on so that we can have a fresh map. Wasn't that nice of them?
I think that's very, very nice.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Marginal risk. Well, they know that we love them. Marginal risk from Maine to northeast West Virginia to northern West Virginia and northern Virginia. We do have an area of slight risk, eastern Pennsylvania, the northern third of New Jersey to just north of New York City, much of Connecticut, Massachusetts, the Hudson Valley up to about the Catskills, into southern New Hampshire. Uh, Chance that we might get this expanded a little bit, you think? Maybe they'll pepper it with a little tornado risk when they update this map tomorrow morning.
Well, I told you yesterday that it would not be surprising if they did put some kind of a, you know, chance for severe weather. Of course, you yourself has been talking about this since the weekend. But one thing, I was looking at the 3 kilometer NAM especially shows a dynamic squall line. This is the 18Z run moving through sometime around 6, 7 o'clock in the evening on Friday.
Well,
So it
I
might
have
be,
I'm bringing it up right now,
yeah.
and yes, there it is. These thunderstorms would time out well for the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, and we'll let everybody know tomorrow whether we're going to do a Friday show. But you can see what the 3 kilometer is doing here. Yeah, that's a fairly wicked line. And in the recent thunderstorm events, the NAM 3 kilometer has been somewhat subdued in their thunderstorm development, which for the most part has played out fairly well. So it'll be interesting to see whether, now that it's got what looks like a robust line, whether the 3 kilometer NAM is going to, be correct. You'll notice that those storms kind of tail off a bit when they move over Long Island and southeastern New England. So there might be maybe a little bit of a south wind along the coast that could temper some of those storms when they cross the bridges and pay the tolls. But yeah, pretty robust line here being indicated, as you said, by the 3 kilometer now.
And again, something for us to watch. And again, we'll let you all know tomorrow whether or not we're going to be working on Friday. Oh, darn it.
Yeah,
But we always say that if there's something worthy of our being on our normal off day, we will be there, and that should make executive producer Ruben Fairchild happy. I know he would want us to work every single day of the week.
well, maybe more than once a day too.
Yeah.
Marginal to slight risk also indicated in the Central Plains, with a slight risk from northern Kansas covering a good chunk of the state of Nebraska for Friday into Saturday. So there's going to be a busy Friday night. Now, as far as the rainfall is concerned, we look at WPC's forecast. Now, remember, a lot of these areas in South Florida have already gotten 5 to 10. So this is on top of what has fallen, starting from 8 o'clock tonight. So I'm looking here, Joe. There's some areas of, I just want to make sure I match the colors correctly. So that's 7 to 10. There's still some patchy areas of additional 7 to 10 inches in Southwest Florida and also in Southeast Florida. There's like a little circle there right around about where Miami and Fort Lauderdale are. They push up the inch and a half uh, just north of the I-4 corridor from Tampa to Daytona. So, maybe the next surge will wind up bringing some rain a little bit further to the north, but you can see how it cuts off pretty considerably as you make your way up into North Florida. Again, Jacksonville gets lately about a quarter of an inch on their forecast. And further north, by the way, here in Georgia, south of North Carolina, and to southeast Virginia, looks like there won't be any rain for the next 7 days. There's going to be another uh, system, another piece that comes out from the Northwest Caribbean, and this one's going to get pushed to the west next week as the heat ridge starts to build to the north. It's going to shove that moisture away from Florida and push it more toward Texas, and particularly coastal Texas around the Houston area. Now they've certainly had their fair share of heavy rain over the last month, so I think that they're not too happy about the fact that uh, they've got forecasts for 5 to 7 inches plus being indicated along that coastal area in southeast Texas, and the heavy rains extend down as far south as Corpus Christi and also along the south coast of Louisiana. Big rains of 2 to 3 inches in Minnesota, some of that coming tonight and into Wisconsin. Uh, not much in the west, except a little bit more in the northwest, and also some pockets of dry weather across Texas and Oklahoma, and then back down through back through New Mexico and Arizona and California, because after all, this is now going into their dry season. So let's look at what's happening. I'm going to bring up the GFS. Actually, what I'm going to also do here, well, I'm going to set this up, and then we'll come back to this in a second. I'm going to bring up, I was looking at the digital forecasts here uh, for next week, and oh, they updated the map. All right, let me see if I can make this a little more visible here. I'll just change the colors a little bit and add a you know, few extra stations, and we'll just go close up. So, uh, as far as the heat is concerned for next week on Monday, the digital forecasts have temperatures reaching the upper 80s and lower 90s from eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. It's a little cooler in Connecticut and points north. It's mostly middle to upper 80s there. And we've got 80s going all the way up into Maine and 80s well up into upstate New York, so middle and upper 80s there. But temperatures around the 90-degree mark, centered over New Jersey, eastern PA. New York City, they got LaGuardia at 86, but they've got a 90 in northeast New Jersey. So, it's close. Then next Tuesday, they've got some numbers here, Joe. 93 for New York, 91 for LaGuardia, 94 for White Plains, and 95 in, I don't know what that point is supposed to be in northeast New Jersey, but let's say it's Teterboro. It's probably north of Teterboro. 96 for Trenton, 97 for Philadelphia, 97 for Wilmington, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, 98 in Baltimore, 96 in Washington. So Tuesday, looking like a pretty hot day. I'm going to widen this out just a little bit so we can see some other areas here. And you can see it's all near or just over 90 back through the Ohio Valley in the southeast. I mean, it's not crazy warm. I mean, it's not crazy hot. It's just sort of more typical here. But it looks like the hottest there is going to be from northeast Virginia to the Hudson Valley on Tuesday. And then when we go to Wednesday, uh, still on the hot side here. The hottest temperatures again, northeast Virginia to the Hudson Valley. They got a 96 for Poughkeepsie on Wednesday next week, 94 for White Plains, 93 for New York, 91 for New York City, 95 for Trenton, 95 for Philadelphia, 96 for Baltimore, 95 for Washington. So if this forecast is correct, uh, 3 days of 90 plus coming next week, at least 3 days.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, this was suggested especially by CPC, the Climate Prediction Center, yesterday, talking about 80 to 90% probability of above normal temperatures, and that certainly looks like it's going to be the case next week. Not only that, but the probability of precipitation is going to be down. So not only is it going to be hot, it's going to be dry too.
Well, from the standpoint of rain, yeah, it probably will be.
Yeah.
Just looking at the upper air, you can see there's a closed upper high tomorrow over New Mexico and West Texas, and that uh, starts to push northeastward. You've got this trough that's dropping southeast, the trough that's producing thunderstorms in Minnesota tonight swings to the east, and it's a halfway decent looking shortwave here that comes through on Friday. So I think that certainly the risk is justified as far as severe weather is concerned. And then it quickly goes out, and we start to see the building ridge in the eastern part of the U.S. Over the weekend. And while the weekend itself is not going to be hot, uh, I was thinking upper 70s at the coast and low to mid 80s inland. But then on Monday, we start to get into the position, the ridge is in position to bring the heat in to the east. You can see there's a deep trough in the west. There's a big upper low that drops down into Idaho. It's going to be pretty cool out in the west with that sort of a pattern. And the ridge in the east just holds and builds uh, all of next week. And now we're into Friday and we're still in a ridge position. Starts to weaken though as we go into next weekend. So, but it still certainly looks like it's going to be hot every day next week. The only question I have is beyond Wednesday whether we get maybe into a little bit of an onshore flow with a very weak backdoor that may try to come down uh, after Wednesday. It's hard to see how that it's hard to predict that, but I think it's possible. But that other than that, there really is nothing that would break this until we get a significant crashing of that ridge.
By who knows, by a week from Friday, a week from this Friday, we might all be saying, when's that next cold front coming? It's been a while since we've had a protracted or prolonged stretch of really hot weather here in the Northeast. I know that the Western U.S. went through a lot of that last year, but for us, we've had our share of heat, but it only has lasted like a day or two. We've not really had those long stretches of 4 or 5, 6 days or more of extreme heat. Well, I'm not saying that's going to happen next week, but certainly we're verging on something like that. So
Yeah,
get ready.
Frank Scalera pointing out that we had to wait till September last year to have 3 days of 90-degree heat, 3 days in
Right,
a row.
right. I
So,
remember that.
so this is definitely different. All right, let's look at the surface on the GFS, and you can see a little low does form off the east coast of Florida.
By the
And then
way, the executive producer Ruben Fairchild on the chat board says, "I love your show, guys. Why can't we do more shows? I hope you guys are on this Friday. I would like to see a late night edition of the show, like Nightline or the Late Show with Joe and Joe."
and we'll bring the June Taylor dancers on. How's that? If there are any of them that are still alive, which I don't think they are, but
Well,
uh,
he also adds, I am available. This is Ruben Fairchild again. I am available to do a live remote if you guys want me to go live one night, trying to make the show even better. If. Oh, and he also says, for me, he says maybe a Joe Rayo German festival report. For that, you'd actually need Mrs. Rayo to give you the German festival report.
right.
She could be more enthusiastic
All
about
of
it.
this requires a crew.
Yes.
Okay, and that's one thing we do. I'm the crew, so and I'm in another state, so no.
Durakovic says 1:30 a.m.
I can just imagine what the chat board would look like at 1:30 a.m.
I could see us doing a Joe and Joe 1:30 a.m. Right?
All right.
Yeah.
All right, back to the low off the East Coast, which just runs out to the Northeast anyway. Here comes that front. You can see the storms for tomorrow in Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, and then Friday. GFS has got it's for the GFS, it actually shows that there might be some pretty strong storms here come Friday evening as the front goes by. Meanwhile, we start to see the rain in Florida still going on Thursday. Let me just back it up. But still some heavy rain overnight into Thursday, and then some more heavy rain developing during the day tomorrow, especially along the east coast of Florida. And then it starts to slowly diminish, though it doesn't completely go away. And then, of course, we've got the weekend here with a nice high coming in over the Great Lakes, making for should be a lovely Saturday. It looks like everything should be out of the way, unless there's a leftover cloud or two Saturday morning, but it looks like a lovely Saturday and a nice Sunday for Father's Day. Meanwhile, there's still blue showing up in snow in southwest Canada with that deep trough coming into the west, and even in parts of Idaho and Montana. Look at that. There's dark blue there in northwestern Montana with that deep upper low that's coming into the west. And meanwhile, we'll be cooking here in the east. Once the high goes offshore Sunday night, Monday we start with the southwest wind, and that continues. You know, the GFS, Joe, at least in inland areas, does produce some thunderstorms on Monday, which is kind of interesting. It does have, there's that ridge is not smooth. There are a couple of little short waves in there, so we might want to, there might be some scattered thunderstorms in the afternoon and evening on Monday, and maybe again even on Tuesday with this. And there's some kind of little front here that tries to get through on Wednesday. You see that high that pops up in eastern Canada. So that would something that we'd have to look at as far as impacting temperatures to some extent. Uh, Meanwhile, we did mention also earlier about the fact that the moisture train in the Gulf of Mexico is going to shift to the central and western Gulf, and you see it here. Uh, in fact, the GFS once again up to its old tricks, trying to develop some kind of a low in the Bay of Campeche. I don't think it matters. It's still whether it does or it doesn't. It still tries to going to be streaming in tropical moisture into Louisiana and Texas, and then we just keep going through next week when we wait for a weather front to break the heat, maybe next Sunday. So.
A
Um,
week from Sunday, you mean?
A week from Sunday, correct. And then, of course, the GFS has a hurricane coming out of the Caribbean and heading up toward the Louisiana coast, which we all know is going to be gone in the next run anyway. So, uh, anyhow, so that pretty much, I mean, that really pretty much sums up how everything is going to play out over the next few days. Uh, I'm going to be curious to see what kind of final rainfall amounts they come out. I'm going to just check Miami again, see if they were updated there. They have a link for latest rainfall reports, but the last one again was from 3:53 a.m. So they don't have anything up yet from what fell in the daytime. Gonna be some crazy amounts down there before it's all said and done.
Indeed, no question.
Do you have Briller Jeopardy?
Yes, I do. And
Yeah.
I'm going to give it to you just in a moment
You're gonna
here.
let me have it?
Yes, you're
You
going to give
heard you heard what he said. Let me have it.
it. All right, I'll give it to you.
Yes.
All right, Rocky, let me have it. All right, so we have, as we continue with tropical systems retired in the Atlantic Basin, we go to the letter with the most names that have been retired, and that letter is I.
I'm going to start this off with my favorite ice storm, and at the same time say hello to my favorite director.
I.
Hi, Ivan. Ivan Raguse. Hi, Ivan.
Yes.
Um, he was our director at FiOS, and he was great.
Okay, Rich Rothmansky says Ida, and we do have an Ida on there.
Right, and Isaias is Abedin Durakovic. So we know that was retired. Irene, Vincent Croce with Rich Rothmansky. Michael Azera came up with Irene and Irma.
Irma,
And
I haven't.
all right, Rich Rothmansky with Ione. Dennis Cassia with Ida. Um, Chuck Cardillo, I think I'm assuming you mean Isaias, which we got.
Ida.
Inez from Anthony Orr, who by the way hit super chat last night. Thank you, Anthony. Inez.
And yes, and we have a Reuben Fairchild saying Ike, and Ike is indeed there.
Iota from Anthony Orr.
Iona?
Iota, the Greek letter.
Iota.
Yeah,
Iota. Yes.
right. And Rich Rothmansky adds Isidore.
Isidore is there too.
And Patrick Darcy and Northern Grace have Ian or Ian.
Ian was there at the top of the list at 2022.
All right, how many do we have left?
One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. Okay, so if there were 14, we have four left.
Four left? Hmm. Oh my. My blank mind is even more blank than usual. There's four left, folks. Ike was said. Isaac from Vincent Croce?
Isaac
Yes.
is not there, believe it or not.
Northern Grace and Leon Brevitsky, Isabel.
Isabel is there, yes.
Okay, so now we're down to three.
Yes. Now, somebody up there said Itzaia. That's
Well, we had him already.
Kovic. Itzaia.
Right.
And that's not on the list.
Well, that's a retired tropical storm.
Joe, the decision of the judge is final.
All
The
right.
judge, chairman did not list Itzaia on the
All right.
list.
I know Imelda's not on the list, though it should be. How about Igor? Or should I say Igor?
Igor, yes, Igor or Igor is there.
Um, Anthony Orr mentions Ingrid.
Ingrid is there.
All right, so what are we left with?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We got one left. Which one is that?
Can you give the year as a hint?
But first I have to determine which one we haven't mentioned yet. Ian was 2022. Ida was 2021. Igor was 2010. Ike was 2008. Inez was 1966. Really?
Yeah.
Inez all the way back that far.
Well, you don't have to give the year hints because I think somehow this should have been because
Oh, I know what
it's so recent. Irma,
we mentioned Irma.
we did.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so we're still missing one.
Let me make sure. Wait a minute. Hang on for a second. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And on my list, I have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Which one is the one that we haven't mentioned yet?
Well, Frank Scalera, yes, we did mention Ivan. It was the first one because I got to say hello to my friend Ivan.
Is it, oh, wait a minute, Ivan,
Uh,
Isidore, we have mentioned that.
what about Ione?
Ione,
Ione.
we mentioned Ione.
Okay, you're
Irene,
still Irene. We got. You're still trying to figure out the one we haven't mentioned.
wait a minute. Okay, I see which one we did not mention. I'll give you
Okay.
the I'll give you the year. 2001.
Oh God, male or female?
Female.
Female. Um, hmm. I don't have a clue. Iris?
Sounds
Says
like
Dennis Cassia?
no, it sounds like part of a lens.
Part of a lens? Iris?
There you go.
Yeah,
Iris.
so that's Dennis Cassia said Iris, and so did Vincent Croce. I have no recollection of that at all. None,
They must have done something.
I
Did
guess.
tired or whatever.
All right. Okay, so that takes care of the I's. So I'm guessing tomorrow is the J's, and we'll see where that goes. Anything else you want to add before we say goodnight?
No, there's nothing really.
Because we covered it all. I mean,
Yeah,
we
right.
do it so brilliantly here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use the coupon code SPRING 2024 because if you don't, you won't get.
10% off.
All right, so we'll see everybody tomorrow night. We'll let you know about Friday, and remember that we're not going to have a show on Sunday. So we'll see you tomorrow.
And thank you for the 43 likes tonight.
Yes, audience was low tonight for some reason.
Whatever.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.
Bye.